on for 1 second. The president's arriving there on the tarmac at Andrews Air Force Base, right there with Air Force One. Want to thank Rev. What a great shot right there, right up. Okay, I will tell you, there's not going to be any press avail today. No gaggle. They call him gaggles when he walks out of the White House. No gaggle this morning. Nothing getting on the plane. Maybe he does something on Air Force One. If he does, we'll put it up for you immediately or as soon as we get it. The President of the United States, I think the First Lady is going also, but I didn't see getting into the car. I think she's going down to also go to Mar-a-Lago. They both did the trick-or-treats. President Trump. And off for the weekend. Brian Glenn, I guess Brian Glenn's going to get the day off. There's the president right there. That signature move he makes. Look, waving right at the Real America's Voice camera. How's that? Waving it. Another 24/7. Always working.
Well, we can go country by country. During the Obama administration, the largest CIA operation of all time, Operation Timber Sycamore, which was from 2011 to early 2017, was the over $1 billion in CIA funding to effectively ISIS and Al-Qaeda groups that were called moderate rebels. At that time, a major Antifa cell was, according to Rolling Stone, the closest partner of the U.S. military on the ground. You can actually look up the Syrian Antifa platoons. They were working directly with the U.S. military, U.S. intelligence, and the U.S. statecraft apparatus in order to unseat Bashar al-Assad from the head of state of Syria. That was an operation that was eventually successful in December of 2024 during the lame duck period. I personally think that was done because they were concerned Trump would not unload all of the forces when he came to power in January. But the fact is Antifa was an addendum of U.S. intelligence and military in Syria. Look at what's happening in Germany. We blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. No one should fool themselves for one flat second about what happened there. It was a Ukrainian diving team. Poland just refused to extradite all the suspects in the case that Germany has been investigating, saying that if they blew it up, it wasn't a crime. The fact is, the Ukrainian diving team, according to the New York Times publications, the CIA had advance notice of this intent to do it. And according to that story, the CIA told them not to do it, but they did it anyway. No one believes that for a second. The CIA completely controlled Ukrainian intelligence. The New York Times reported that on day one after the Maidan coup in 2014, the first phone call the new Ukrainian intelligence made was to the local CIA station chief and to the local head of MI6. Right. The fact is we blew up that Nord Stream pipeline. And who has been going against the AfD party and the folks wanting to restore the Nord Stream pipeline in Germany? It's Antifa on the ground in Germany doing exactly what the Biden-Obama State Department has wanted them to do, breaking up their meetings, doxing people, and doing anarcho-tyranny. It's the same thing in France to stop Marine Le Pen, the Trump ally there.
Do me a favor, Mike.
Spain.
Let's do this.
But just think about the story I broke this morning. 4 years after Crossfire Hurricane and the October surprise of trying to drop a fake Russia story into Americans' laps before they voted for Donald Trump, the FBI was at it again. After all that was learned, after all the hearings, after all the letters written by angry senators and chairmen, the FBI felt absolute impunity to do this again. 2 weeks before the election, there is an FBI team in the Washington field office where a lot of this stuff starts. By the way, this isn't Arctic Frost. This is pre-Arctic Frost. Post-Crossfire Hurricane, pre-Arctic Frost. Someone sitting in the FBI thinking it's a good job, good idea, 2 weeks before Election Day to go through all of Donald Trump's campaign finances and see if I can find something I can hang a criminal investigation on. And their idea that they actually issue an official bulletin on, an intelligence bulletin, is, hey, I looked at this money. Donald Trump pays his vendors. The vendors pay their people. And one of the people who got paid goes out and gambles. That could be criminal. All right. How is getting a paycheck and using it for gambling criminal? But that's what they're doing. And then they have to admit that this is pretty lousy investigative work. So they put it at low confidence level that that this is probably a true crime. And then they recommend, let's go investigate anyways. Go take the steps to get this to be a criminal investigation against Donald Trump. Now, you're not doing that 2 weeks before an election because it just showed up on your deck. Someone is driving this for political purposes. That's what it looks like when you look at these documents. Now, contrast this to what was going on in the same Washington field office, in the same FBI under Chris Wray. In that same time frame is when all that intelligence comes in that China might be intervening in the U.S. election, getting fake driver's licenses and fake ballots so they can help Joe Biden win. And what does the FBI do with that one? It says, circular, we're going to throw it in the garbage can. That is the FBI in 2020. It was just as bad and maybe even worse under Chris Wray than it was in 2016 under Comey. The mindset was not crushed, and it became more emboldened in 20. And then in 21, 22, you see how emboldened it is when they get to Arctic frost. This cancer kept spreading, it kept metastasizing, and more people thought it was okay to settle political scores under the power of government color. And I think that's the cancer we're now fighting, and it's more deep-rooted today than it's ever been. There's been a lot of, progress made in firing and moving people, but there are agencies we don't even talk about, like the National Archives, that were in on this. They were helping this machinery to crush MAGA, create the MAGA dragnet and crash the MAGA movement. And we have a lot of work to expose who all those people are. We're hardly, maybe 3% into the project.
ICE agents are facing an alarmingly high level of death threats. New data showing that these death threats have gone up by 8,000%. And officials say bounties have been placed on their heads as well. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem says these threats will not slow them down in deportations. Join us now is Sheriff Chad Bianco, of Riverside County. He's also a Republican candidate for governor of California. Sheriff, thanks for being here on a Friday. How do you turn this around? What needs to happen? The Trump administration is doing everything they can, but you're on the ground and you know best.
Yeah, we definitely need to change the narrative. The narrative is that ICE is bad. ICE is doing something that's out of the ordinary, when reality is ICE is doing their job that they've been doing since really the beginning of our country, and that's enforcing border laws and deporting criminals. And the big thing that I see here, especially from our politicians, Governor Newsom, Mayor Bass, it's the lies that they tell about what ICE is really doing. And it's meant just to demonize them, to make them think that, they're out there doing these rogue things, these kidnappings and all of this stuff, telling them to rise up and fight back. And that's what we're seeing. So you have people thinking that ICE is doing something wrong, and they're justified in their crazy brain that violence against them is okay. And we're going to see people get hurt. And I truly blame the media that's not calling out these politicians. I blame the politicians themselves. And we have to do better of changing this narrative.